Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Dr. Thomas Hemingway here. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out.
Oh, what a pleasure today. We have a phenomenal guest, a physician that has done so much in the world of medicine and really functional medicine, integrative medicine, holistic medicine, who, like myself, was trained in a Western society as far as a traditional Western approach. And he has been a pioneer in really getting to the cause of illness. What really got us to where we are in this current conundrum where we literally are dying like crazy from heart disease and diabetes and cancer and all of these things that really could be prevented. And so we have with us today New York Times best-selling author, Dr. Alejandro Junger, who is joining us from across the globe. And what a pleasure to have you. Welcome, Dr. Junger.
Thank you. And the pleasure is mine.
Oh no! As we say, el placer es mío. It's such a treat to have you. Encantado. Just so excited to have you here today. And just to kind of start us off high level, how do you, in your experience and from your practice, how do you see the world of, let's say, our current medical situation? We are among the most ill society ever to walk the face of the earth, with heart disease and diabetes and cancer really killing us like crazy. And how did we get here, and what can we do about it?
So at some point in the evolution of humans, we decided to live a more comfortable life, right? So just imagine if you had a fish tank, and all of a sudden the fish say, well, you know what, we don't like swimming in this water. We're going to go and, get out of the fish tank and go into the mud. And they go in the mud, and maybe at the beginning it's more comfortable. They don't have to move that much, but then they can breathe, and they start getting sick and they die. So we are like fish that left the fish tank. The fish tank is nature, and we've moved to the mud, which is the modern world that we're living in, that we created in order to achieve that comfort. We're not cold in the winter because we have heat. We're not hot in the summer. We have air conditioning. We're not wet in the rain because we have the roofs over our heads. And we're never hungry because we have the refrigerators and there's food available 24/7. And we don't have to go upstairs because we have elevators. I mean, you think about it, and human life revolves around comfort. And I think that comfort is what is killing humanity. Now, in addition to that, that in itself is already a big problem, then you have the problem of the toxicity of our planet. The air that we breathe, the water we drink and shower with, the cosmetics we apply on our skin, the buildings that we build and that we live in, the furniture we put inside our homes, the cleaning detergents that we use to wash our sheets and our clothing, the glues that we put our carpets and our wood floors with, but mostly the foods or I'd say it better, the edible products, the food-like stuff that we eat, that is full with chemicals. All these things are full of chemicals that alone or in combination can cause all kinds of problems. So comfort plus toxicity, and then you find the common state of human health on the planet.
Yeah, wow. I love how you explain that. I haven't heard that analogy of the fish in the mud, because I think it really hits the nail on the head of how we got here. And I think we as humans, we just, we're so innovative and creative, and we just think we can outsmart Mother Nature sometimes, right? And all in the name of, like you said, comfort, make things easier, make things, just simple. And we've really messed it up in a lot of cases. In fact, Western medicine that you and I trained in, I think we totally missed the boat on how to really achieve wellness. As you and I know, it's a sick care model. It's not a well care or a health care. It's really sick care. We put band-aids on all of these fires that are brewing with all these diseases, but we never, or rarely in conventional medicine, rarely get to the root of illness. And you were literally a
So
pioneer in this.
so
You were
so
getting
so
there
the thing is
earlier.
that the modern Western medical the modern Western medicine is great for acute problems. You know, you emergency room doctor. If somebody comes with a heart attack, you send them directly to the cath lab. They open their artery, they put a stent, you know, and they prevent the myocardial infarction or even a stroke. Or you have a bleeding ulcer, you go, you do a scope, you cauterize the bleeding. If you break an arm, you go to a good orthopedic surgeon, and you get screws and stuff. You know? All that stuff. There's nothing like Western medicine, Western modern medicine for that. Now the problem is that we try to use the same tools for acute problems in the chronic issues, and that's when it doesn't help, because that's when we don't get to the root of the problem. And the issue is that 90% of the problems that we are as human beings are suffering from are chronic problems. So Western medicine is great for 10% of the problems that humans have in health. 90% of them, we're still trying to put a round peg in a square hole, you know?
So how did you get to this place so much quicker than most of our colleagues? You know, when I speak to a cardiologist on the phone, for example, if I'm working overnight in an emergency department someplace in the world, you know, they don't usually have this, you know, sort of big picture holistic approach that you do. You're talking about, did I give the aspirin or the other drug or the other, you know, thing prior to the cath lab or these kinds of things? They don't focus on this 90% that we can really make an important difference with in the preventing the heart attack. How did you get to where you were, coming from cardiology that most people view as such a structured, what they like to call it themselves as being the most evidence-based physicians out there, talking about all these studies with aspirin and numbers needed to treat? Like, how did you get there so early in your career?
And thank God for them, right? Because you know, my mom had a heart attack last year, and they had to do an emergency open heart surgery and change her mitral valve and the dosage of the anticoagulants and the antiarrhythmics, and all that's very important. And we need people like that don't think about, you know, too much about philosophy and that are in the details of the acute problem, right? But I am the classic example of the wounded healer. So where, you know, I got sick myself, and when I got sick with depression, irritable bowel syndrome, allergies, you know, all kinds of problems, all chronic problems, I went to my colleagues and they gave me 7 prescription medications. But I knew, because I was a doctor at that time, I knew that those chemicals were just going to force a certain chemistry in my body without really correcting the underlying dysfunction. I knew that because of my training, right? I mean, and it didn't make sense to me. And it didn't make sense to me that if this kind of approach doesn't make sense to me, my own personal health, why would I force it on my patients, you know? So even though it was exhilarating and it was interesting to run an intensive care unit and put pacemakers and save lives in that way, I myself, when I got sick, I tried to look for a different approach. And my search took me to find certain things that then started helping my friends, my family, and later on my patients. And then there was a point in which I just couldn't live a double life anymore of going to the hospital in the morning and then in the afternoon, you know, going and lecturing at a detox center, you know.
Wow, that's the wounded healer. And I mean, you experienced yourself kind of a really common situation in the world, right? Not only in U.S., but really heart disease and these kinds of problems like diabetes, cancers, and liver, kidney disease. They're worldwide. I mean, these are among the top 10 killers in the world. And you had other conditions that are so common too, like you said, depression and irritable bowel and these kinds of imbalances. I like to view them as more imbalances in our body, because our bodies were made perfect, in kind of my humble opinion. Our body is beautiful.
Imbalances, yes, but it sounds a little esoteric.
Yeah.
I like the word dysfunction.
Dysfunction. Yeah, that's a good.
Right.
Dysfunction. It's not, because it's not operating the way it should be. It's not in the ideal.
Because when you say imbalance, it sounds a little bit, hokey pokey, right?
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I know in functional medicine, we talk about functions, systems, and dysfunctions, right? And in general, in functional medicine, we think that any dysfunction is most likely due to one of two reasons or both. Something that is blocking the normal function, or something that is missing for the normal function to be performed. And when you add what is missing and you remove what is blocking, then everything corrects by itself, because the body is always trying to do the right thing. It's always trying to perform its functions, and that's why it can't. Either there's something missing or there's something that's blocking it.
Yeah. Now, the body wants to heal itself. The body is intelligent. And I think we sometimes try to oversimplify things, and we try to step in the way and make the quick fixes, and we don't let the body really heal itself, or we don't give the body the tools it needs to heal itself, because the body can heal itself from nearly anything. And one of the things I think there
are no incurable diseases. There are only incurable patients. And those are the ones that didn't find the way. Wow. Or didn't look for the way, or didn't find the way, right? And it's not that the body wants to heal itself. It's the only thing that the body knows how to do. The body doesn't have. We are not born with a programming for disease. The body doesn't know how to create disease. Disease is a result of a dysfunction, and a dysfunction is a result of either something that's blocked or something that's missing.
Yeah, what a great approach, and it's very simple, and I think to some sounds a little too simple, but I think you were at the cutting edge of this more than a decade ago when you wrote one of your first books, Clean Gut, where you talk about the importance of gut health. And maybe you can just share your sort of approach to gut health and why that's so darn important in not only this day and age, but it's always been important, and maybe we had just forgotten or not paid attention to it. Tell us about your approach to gut health and why it's so important.
The body. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the body is constantly adapting and surviving, right? And one of the ways in which the body adapts and survives is by withstanding external invaders and external injury and external attacks, right? Whether it's temperature, whether it's bugs, whether it's chemicals, whatever it is, the body, to maintain its integrity, has to adapt and survive. Now, what is the part of our body that is most exposed to the outside world? The skin around your body is exposed to air, and the clothing that you wear, and maybe the water that the lungs are exposed to the air that you breathe in. But through your gut, you process tons, and I'm talking about the metric measurement of weight, tons of stuff every in a lifetime, tons, and all that stuff that as I said, is not food anymore. It's edible stuff, right? It's full of chemicals, and within and around the gut, we have a huge immune system. Maybe 80-90% of your immune system is deployed around your gut. There's a huge nervous system, and there's a skin that separates the inside of the outside, because whatever is transiting through your intestinal tube is outside the body technically. It only gets inside the body when it's absorbed through the intestinal wall. So the intestinal wall should be intact, but because of the bad bacteria that we're generating, because of the bad foods that we eat, because of the chemicals that we consume, that skin, that inner skin, which is the wall of the intestine or the intestinal wall, starts getting broken. And when it starts getting broken, the immune system starts reacting, and then the nervous system starts reacting, and then it ends up causing all kinds of imbalances and dysfunctions around the body.
Yeah. Wow. No, that the gut is the sort of entrance to everything or most things from the outside world, right? Like you often talk about the huge surface area of the gut, whether it be the size of a small apartment or a tennis court, who cares? It's the biggest surface area really in our bodies that's exposed to so many things
And
that we eat or we drink.
It's not only the surface area, it's the amount of stuff that goes through. I mean, your skin doesn't, in a lifetime, doesn't touch a 100th of what the skin in your gut touches, you know?
That's what an important point. And you know, problematically right now, we, you know, as humans are putting in, like you said, so many food-like substances or you know, comprised of tons of toxins and obviously lots of sugar. We eat, I think on average, 150 pounds of sugar a year. You know, it's like, what in the world? How did we get to this place? And you've, you know, shared how important getting your gut functioning properly, not having dysfunction, because it wants to do the right thing, right? It wants to adapt to whatever we throw at it. But in its process of adaptation,
once is a tricky word, right? I don't even say it once. It doesn't know how to do anything else.
Okay,
it's constantly attempting to function correctly, given the circumstances that it's living with, you know.
Yeah, no, good point. I it's not like, although, you know, we call it the brain gut axis and the neurochemical, you know, connections between the brain and the gut. It's not like the gut has its own brain and says, I want to do this. It's programmed, like you say, to adapt to any situation, and that's what it knows how to do. It doesn't know how to get sick.
The gut does have a huge brain. It's just not the part of the brain, or it's not the type of brain that makes the conscious decisions, right?
Yeah.
But it is the part of the brain, or the kind of brain that deals with very important things like intuition. Intuition is governed by the brain in the gut, you know, and intuition is so important for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're totally right. That gut feeling that we have, and just the amount of connections that exist between the gut and the brain. I agree. It is appropriate to kind of call it the gut brain, because it affects, you know, at the end of the day, we get to make the choice, but sometimes we are a little bit hijacked by what's there. And if we have the wrong kind of bacteria that's telling us to eat the wrong kind of things, you know, it's telling us that for its own survival, and then we may succumb to that. And our frontal cortex may say, well, I want that Oreo, or I want that whatever, but the reason we want it is because we have the wrong kind of bacteria that tells us that, you know.
That's a really important point. The bacteria in your gut are the ones that determine even what you want to eat, what your cravings are.
Yeah, and you, I mean, it's so amazing that this one of the original books you wrote, The Clean Gut, was over a decade ago, and you were right, just on point. And I know in my medical school, we never once talked about gut health. I can tell you that 25 years ago, and I'm sure for you didn't talk about gut health in medical school either. Was there one thing in your life that got you thinking that way? Was it your own illness? And how did you discover that super important concept?
Well, first of all, I was suffering from digestive issues that were concomitant with, you know, my allergies, with my depression. But then when I corrected them through the things that I found, detoxification and gut repair programs, then I understood it in my own flesh that good digestion is, you know, one of the most important things. Because even if you're completely fine otherwise, but you're not, you get bloated and you get pains in your abdomen and gases and things like that, You're frozen. Even if you know, it reduces your quality of life. You know,
No, it affects
I have a person here helping with my children. She couldn't. She had energy and she was fine, but she couldn't go out of her house without knowing the route with the car and what bathrooms would be available, um, because sometimes she needed to go all of a sudden, and you know, had an explosive diarrhea, right? So she needed to know exactly where she could you know, like if she had to drive from where we are to London, she had to go through a certain route that you know, she knew that there was a restaurant that she could use or a gas station that she could use. And that really limited her life. And then, you know, when I moved here, we started working together, and I put her on my gut repair program, and that's a thing of the past now. And her life is so much better because of it.
Wow. Wow. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is not only is it so powerful, but the ability for your gut to respond to what you do to help, like you said, the repair process actually happens relatively quickly, more quickly than I think most people could ever predict. And in your experience, you put people on your clean gut, you know, program, and you have the Clean 7, that book that just came out, in your repair program. How long until people start to notice differences in their function, like this woman?
It really depends. It really depends. Some people, within days. You know, but think about it. When you get a problem in your gut, sometimes it's only hours, right? But some people that have chronic problems and that took antibiotics periodically throughout their life, those can be a little bit harder and they can take a little bit longer. But what I found is that within 21 days, about 60% of the people that come to me get a real good degree of repair when they do my program. But some people need to do 6 weeks, or you know, some people need to do 3 months.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, how amazing that you can repair, you know, the gut in such a relatively, I mean, if you and I think about it, a lot of these chronic diseases have been going on for years or even decades, and you are helping people repair them and get to their proper functioning, getting rid of dysfunction in a matter of weeks to months. Like, how miraculous is that can be done that quickly? And one of the pillars you always talk about is detoxification, because, you know, so much that we put into our body, we're exposed to, is toxic. How does the liver play into that? A lot of people, I think, don't have a great understanding of how the liver plays into that and what the whole detoxification looks like. And I really feel like you're expert at explaining that. How would you kind of share that with people, how that process works and the importance of it, the detoxification?
So functional medicine distinguishes 7 systems in the body, right? There's the structural system, the cell membranes, the bones. It's whatever gives you shape and form, right? Then there's the communication system, which is hormones and nerves. Then there's the digestive assimilation system. And one of the systems is the detoxification system, or biotransformation and elimination system, right? So you know, the body is constantly burning sugar and producing waste products, the waste products of your metabolism: ammonia, lactic acid, uric acid, CO2. You know, there's many things, homocysteine. There's many things that the body produces as the waste products of metabolism of normal, like an engine. An engine burns fuel and with oxygen, there's an explosion, and then there's a carbon monoxide that's formed, you know. So that's what the body is doing, and it has a system to get rid of those toxins, to neutralize and get rid of those toxins. Now, miraculously, that system can also take care of external toxins, exotoxins. We were talking about the endotoxins. Now we're talking about the exotoxins, which are the ones that come from the outside, right? And there's natural exotoxins, and there's man-made exotoxins. And the exotoxins that are man-made, they're in the thousands. We're inventing them every day and putting them in our products. You know, we now we have cheese in a tube that it's like an aerosol tube. You know, and I mean it's insane, right? So all these chemicals, they go in, they get absorbed. First of all, they kill your bacteria. Then they damage your gut lining, the intestinal wall. Then they get into your blood. And then there's a lot of things that these toxins can do. They can act as hormones, or they can inhibit hormones, or they can deplete certain nutrients, or they can be corrosive and simply kill cells, or they can act as oxidants. I mean, there's many ways in which these exotoxins can act, and it happens to be that 90% of the exotoxins that we are exposed to are only lipophilic. They only dissolve in fat, and the body doesn't know how to expel, how to eliminate things through fat. It only knows how to eliminate things through urine, sweat, and feces, and breath. So only through water. So the liver has to biotransform these molecules from lipophilic into hydrophilic, from fat soluble into water soluble, so that they can be eliminated, right? And this is done through the activity of the liver enzymes. I mean, of course, 30 to 40% of the detoxification of the toxins that we're exposed to is actually done by the bacteria in our gut. But since most of us are walking around with an abnormal intestinal flora, I'm sure that for most of us, that activity is reduced. So then it's left, the brunt of the work is left for the liver to do. And the liver sometimes doesn't have the nutrients needed because you're not eating them, or you're not absorbing them, or the foods that you're eating doesn't contain them. So the liver is left without the ability to manufacture the enzymes needed, and then these toxins continue to accumulate. The body very smartly, very intelligently starts trying to defend itself and buffer the irritation of these molecules. And since they're lipophilic in their majority, the body will generate and retain fat. And nobody talks about this, but a big part of the reason for the pandemic of obesity is the exotoxins that we're exposed to. Obesity is not a disease; it's actually a survival mechanism. Because if we were not retaining and generating fat, those toxins would be free to circulate and cause havoc, right?
Yeah, no, what an important concept that I think we don't often touch on is that notion of the, lipophilic versus, the water loving that you said, the hydrophilic. And to get the toxins out, we need to convert them, like you said, transform them into the hydrophilic or the water soluble. And in the liver, this all happens. And one thing that I experienced, and I think you have too, is that in our training, we talked about liver disease, right? And it was almost all, in those days, alcoholic, cirrhosis or alcohol-related liver disease. Now, the number one cause of liver transplant is actually the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is kind of what you're alluding to, and it gets caused by these things that you're talking about, by what we eat.
So imagine all these toxins are circulating. Of course, the first pass after you eat them and you absorb them, just because of the anatomy of the body, the first pass is through the liver, through the inferior vena cava, inferior cava vein, right? And it goes into your liver, all the portal circulation, and that's where all the toxins are. So when the liver cannot handle it, these toxins linger, and the liver starts accumulating fat, and then it turns into a fatty liver, and that'll kill you.
Yeah, no, and this is. I mean, most people don't know that new. I hate to say new, but that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that is basically completely preventable and reversible through these techniques that you're talking about, paying attention to our diet and our gut health and how to optimize the function so that we get the function back and not so much dysfunction, which occurred by the body's own, adaptation to all the stuff that we're throwing at it. And Wow, what a great explanation of that. I love
100%.
how you shared that. The other thing I've heard you comment on before, which I totally believe in, is one of our sort of forefathers, if you will, right? Hippocrates said that all disease begins in the gut. And he also said that food is let medicine be thy food and food be thy medicine. And I think that sometimes we misconstrue that as people. We like to think of food sometimes maybe as a quick medication, instead of as a medicine. Maybe explain to us what the difference is there and how you view that. How can we really treat food as what it truly is, the medicine, and not medication?
Listen, I don't even know that I agree with that food is medicine, right?
Yeah.
Food is just part of how nature designed the planet and its living organisms to function, right? So it's a necessary part of life. Now, I do agree in the sense that when you start eating in a way that's not in tune with nature, then food becomes medicine, right? Because it helps you heal. But yes, the problem, it all boils down to the problem that we were talking about at the beginning. We have departed from the ways of nature, and this is the price we're paying.
Yeah. We departed from the simplicity of eating, like you said at the very beginning, eating real food, right? The stuff that grows in nature, or that we can see has been grown in the way that nature would have it. If it's plant food, which I think plant-based diet is fantastic, coupled with also, healthy proteins that may come from well-raised sources that were doing the things that they did for millennia, right? Running around free and eating the grasses of the field and doing the things that have been done, for millennia. And we've kind of adulterated the process as humans, trying to make things quicker, simpler, in our mind, right? To mass produce crops
not only is what you eat, but also how often, how you eat it, who you eat it with, how fast you eat it, and in what combination. I mean, there's more problems than just what we are eating, right? So we're eating too much. I believe that breakfast, lunch, and dinner is what's killing humanity, really. And that's part of what we talked about at the beginning. That's part of the comfort that we're looking for.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if we go back even 100 years, we weren't eating these 3 square meals a day that we do now, or 1,000 years, we, maybe ate once a day because we had to go forage or hunt for our food. We weren't having convenience stores and drive-throughs in our refrigerators. And so if we go back to that,
and sometimes once every couple of days, and or different. And that's why a lot of people are finding that intermittent fasting works so well for their health.
Yeah, maybe you can touch on that, this whole business of how could it be that say fasting or timing our foods differently, how could it be that could give us so much more energy? I know that if you wake up and you start doing things, working, or even exercise or whatever, and you don't have a full meal before that, your exercise and your performance is so much better. And how do you explain that? I've heard you use a nature analogy of tigers in the past. How do you explain that to your patients?
The thing is this: we think of food as where we get our energy from, but that's not really true. I mean, it's true in one sense, but when you eat, you actually have to expend a lot of energy in processing, digesting, absorbing, assimilating. That's why when you eat a big meal, you need to take a nap. Think about when you go family big dinners in Thanksgiving, everybody stuff their faces like crazy, and then everybody's sleepy. Some people are sleepy actually after a regular meal. So we spend a lot of energy digesting food. Digestion is energy consuming. So and we don't give digestion a rest. Most human beings in the modern world, you just go to the streets and pick 100 people at random. 99 are in the middle of digestion. No matter what time you go get them, even if they're sleeping, because they had dinner at 9 p.m. and they went to sleep at 10, and digestion takes 4 or 5 hours. So so it's not going to happen. Everybody is digesting. That's one of the biggest problems of humanity right now.
Yeah, and in the name of, like you said, comfort and convenience, all these things are available 24/7, and we're messing with, a natural process that we've been able to use to our health in the past, and now all day long we're digesting, and what this tremendous energy sump that is. And I think most people have no idea that could be possible. Like, how could it take up so much energy? But like you've described, there's so many processes that have to occur during digestion, and it sucks away from energy that maybe people could be using for something else, right?
For repairing, for defending, for thinking, for many things. Yeah, for exercising.
Yeah, it's amazing, the energy. And this is another common misconception, right? People think that, oh, well, I wake up, I'm tired, I don't have energy. Like, the last thing I want to do is go move my body, right? Exercise, because I feel like I don't have energy. So how do you help people with that? Like, that's the fact that, I mean, you and I know we exercise, we feel better, we have more energy, but how do you kind of explain that to your patients? Just to get them started, I guess.
To get them started, I started them on the program, and they realized by themselves. I don't spend too much time talking about the lack of energy in the morning, and the need to exercise to overcome it. Right. Once you start optimizing the function of the detoxification system, and once you start creating the conditions for the gut to repair itself, energy just starts increasing, and people and sleep gets better, and people don't have that problem anymore.
Yeah, no, so true. And it happens. The cool thing I like about it is it happens fairly quickly when you start, like you said, this process of eating the right things and not eating the wrong things, right? All the food-like substances that are surrounding us in 90% of the grocery store, right? Everything in the middle. And
that's a very important point. It's even more important to stop eating certain things, to know what not to eat, than to know what to eat.
Yeah, isn't that crucial? And I think COVID was one of the worst times for that, right? We were all shopping for our comfort foods, right? I don't know if you experienced this where you were in the world, but even in Hawaii, where it's so hard to get food out there on boats and things, and it takes a long time, the perimeter that had all the fresh fruits, vegetables, produce, all the fresh things was always full. In the middle, where you have all the food-like substance, the shelves were empty. And what a travesty.
The cans, the jars, the tubes, the bags, the boxes. Yeah.
So I think we have to start at the grocery store, right? What we put in our cart in the beginning will help determine what ultimately lands at the tip of our fork, which is one of the biggest and most profound and I think powerful factors to how we get not only our gut, but our whole body back to its proper function, to restore that. So, wow, I know.
I could not say it better, doctor.
Thank you so much for being here. Is there I know I want to be appreciative of your time, and is there anything else you'd like to share, a thought that we haven't covered that you feel is powerful before we get into where people can find you?
Yeah, well, we talk about digestion, we talk about toxicity, we talk about the food, the air, the chemicals. But another source of dysfunction is the stress that we live in, right? And the root of that is that we don't live in the present anymore. We're constantly in our minds, in the future, in the past, sad, anxious, fearful, and that is a big problem in humanity as well.
Wow, living in the present. And I appreciate you said that earlier in the interview about how even when we eat our food, we need to be present, not only with our food, but maybe with our family, hopefully our friends that we eat it with. And I think if we're in that present, the studies actually show, the data supports that we would actually eat less calories and we would digest it better because we're going to chew better, and we're going to really appreciate what's in front of us. Wow, be in the present. That's not something many people talk about. That's
right, doctor. That's right.
Wow, just tremendous. What an amazing, oh my gosh, piece of advice that I think most people don't pay attention to. how can people reach out to you, Dr. Junger, and where can they get your program? Tell us a little bit how people can find you and how they can get involved with your detox and gut repair program.
So there's my 4 books: Clean, Clean Gut, Clean Eats, Clean 7. There's my website, cleanprogram.com. There's my Instagram, Dr. Alejandro Junger. Facebook, these days, social media is a good way of learning about other people's work. There's all of that. I'm about to do a PBS special called Demystifying Detoxification. So I'm going to be in most living rooms in America once that airs.
Wow, that's amazing. And look at our listeners and viewers got a little preview of that today with your talk on the detoxification that you share so eloquently. Oh, thank you so much for being here with us. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss out on any future episode. And I'd love to hear your comments and feedback. If there's any topic you'd love to hear about, you're dying to know, burning questions, please comment below and let me know what future topics are of interest to you.